छन्दोभिर्विविधैः पृथक् ब्रह्मसूत्रपदैश्चैव हेतुमद्भिर्विनिश्चितैः महाभूतान्यहङ्कारः बुद्धिरव्यक्तमेव च इन्द्रियाणि दशैकं च पञ्चचेन्द्रियगोचराः इच्छा द्वेषसुखं दुःखं सङ्गादश्चेतना धृतिः एतत् क्षेत्रं समासेन सविकारमुदाहृतम् अमानित्वमदम्भित्वम् अहिंसा क्षान्तिराजवम् आचार्योपासनं शौचम् स्थैर्यमात्मविनिग्रहः इन्द्रियार्थेषु वैराग्यम् अनहङ्कार एव च जन्म मृत्यु जरा व्याधि दुःखदोषानुदर्शनम् असक्तिरनविश्वङ्गः पुत्रदारगृहादिषु नित्यं च समचित्तत्वम् इष्टानिष्टोपपत्तिषु मयि चानन्ययोगेन भक्तिरव्यभिचारिणी विविक्तदेशसेवित्वम् अरतिर्जनसंसदि अध्यात्मज्ञाननित्यत्वम् तत्त्वज्ञानार्थदर्शनम् एतज्ज्ञानमिति प्रोक्तम् अज्ञानं यदतोऽन्यथा ज्ञेयं यत्तत् प्रवक्ष्यामि यज्ञात्वामृतमश्नुते अनादिमत्परं ब्रह्म न सत्तन्नासदुष्यते सर्वतः पाणिपादं तत् सर्वतोक्षिशिरोमुखम् सर्वतः श्रुतिमल्लोके सर्वमावृत्य तिष्ठति सर्वेन्द्रियगुणाभासम् सर्वेन्द्रियविवर्जितम् ससक्तं सर्वभृक्षैव निर्गुणं गुणभोक्तृ च बहिरन्तश्च भूतानाम् अचरं चरमेव च सूक्ष्मत्वात् तदविज्ञेयम् दूरस्थं चान्तिके च तत् अविभक्तं च भूतेषु विभक्तमिव च स्थितम् भूतभर्तृ च तज्ज्ञेयम् ग्रहिष्णुपदविष्णु च ज्योतिषामपि तज्ज्योतिस्तमसः परमुच्यते ज्ञानं ज्ञेयं ज्ञानगम्यं हृदि सर्वस्य विष्ठितम् इति क्षेत्रं तथा ज्ञानं ज्ञेयं चोक्तं समासतः मद्भक्तये तद्विज्ञाय
प्रकृतिं पुरुषं चैव विध्यनादीमुभावपि विकारांश्च गुणांश्चैव विद्धि प्रकृतिसम्भवान् कार्यकरणकर्तृत्वे हेतुः प्रकृतिरुच्यते पुरुषः सुखदुःखानां भोक्तृत्वे हेतुरुच्यते पुरुषः
Hari Om to everybody. Today we are going to see, or in this lecture we are going to see, in brief form, chapter 13 of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. It is indeed a Herculean task to bring this whole chapter into just half an hour. But of course, we try. Let us see. This chapter is important because of maybe two main reasons. One is, it is said traditionally that Bhagavad Gita is divided into three sections of Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga and Jnana Yoga, of 6 chapters each. And so the first 6 chapters deal with Karma Yoga, next 6 chapters from 7 to 12 deal with Bhakti Yoga, and finally 13 to 18 Jnana Yoga. So then chapter 13 becomes the first chapter on this very illustrious part of Jnana Yoga. So for that reason, very important, very famous chapter. Second reason is, it is also said that the 3 sections respectively deal with Tattvamasi Mahavakya. So the first 6 chapters, will deal with the Tvam Pada of Tattvamasi. Then the next 6 chapters from 7 to 12 will deal with Tat Pada of that Mahavakya. And finally, the last 6 chapters will deal with Asipada. So number 13 again then becomes the first chapter in that section dealing with Asipada of Tattvamasi Mahavakya. Like that, also, if you study this 13th chapter, you will see that really it is the quintessence of the Upanishads. So with this introduction having been given, now let us see what is in this chapter. Watch out for 6 main words in this chapter. Chapter 13, 6 main words. If you study these 6 words, I think you'll be able to catch the essence of the chapter and of course the Upanishadic teaching. First word, Kshetra. Second word, Kshetrajna. Third, Jnanam. Fourth, Jneyam. Fifth, Prakriti. And 6th, Purusha. These words are strewn throughout this chapter. And now, let us study these words and then you will catch, I think, the gist of the whole chapter. So, first word, Kshetra. What is this Kshetra? In the beginning of the chapter itself, Bhagavan tells to Arjuna, my dear Arjuna, Idam Shariram He Kaunteya Kshetram iti abhidhiyate. This body is called as Kshetra. And there is one who is dwelling inside this body, who is the knower of the body. Like I know I have a pain. I know my eyesight is dull. I know that I am feeling weak. Who knows? There is somebody inside who knows. He is called as Kshetrajna. That is the second word. Another way to see this is everything which is objectifiable, everything which is seen, Drishyavastu, is called as Kshetra. Kshetra in English can be translated roughly as the field. When you look out like this, you see a field. So, everything objectifiable, everything objectified, everything which is seen or known or perceived or cognized, all of it belongs to Kshetra, the field, that which is experienced. And then there is one who is experiencing. There is one who is knowing the field, one who is perceiving the field. Is called as Kshetrajna. Jna in Sanskrit means to know. So the knower. So the knower of that field, kshetrajna. And what is very interesting in the second verse, Bhagavan tells to Arjuna, see, individually there is kshetra and kshetrajna inside. But in the second verse of the chapter, he says, kshetrajnam cha api mam vidhi. Hey Bharata, sarva kshetreshu. In all kshetras, in all bodies, in all objectifiable things, I am the common kshetrajna. And this is a tremendous statement. See, if you go back again and study slowly, you will see in the first verse, each body, idam shariram kaunteya kshetram iti abhidhiyate. Every body is considered to be kshetram, kshetra. And inside that body, there is a knower of that body. That is called as kshetrajna. But Bhagavan then says in the next line, I am the kshetrajna in all bodies. Meaning what? Every jiva is nothing but Ishvara. This is the... So here, in the first verse and a half itself, the first verse and a half of the chapter, right there, 1.5 verses, Bhagavan has already made a oneness between Jiva and Ishvara. And this Jiva, Brahma, Aikya is essence of Upanishads. We know that, isn't it? And oneness. Already in the beginning itself, he has already outlined the fundamentals of Tattvamasi Mahavakya. So there is the Tvampada, means me who consider myself to be this body, and there is that reality which is inside, Tatpada, and then the reality which is inside is the same common reality in all beings, like this we can say also. So in the beginning itself, a very strong hint towards this Tattvamasi Mahavakya. So these are the first two words which we encounter in the chapter. Kshetra and kshetrajna. The field and the knower of the field. And studying the two words is important. But what is more important is the equation which Bhagavan makes between himself and all the kshetrajna in every kshetra. He is that kshetrajna in every kshetra. This, our Puja Gurudev explains very nicely. So many times he has explained. He says, really, what has happened in every individual's case is the supreme reality, Ishvara, Brahma, the absolute reality, which is shrouded or clothed in investments, or what we call as putting on clothing. In the second chapter, this body is referred to as clothing. Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya, like how we take out old clothing and all that. You know this. So the reality is really clothed, conditioned by this body. And so what I really am is reality, but reality which is shrouded, clothed with matter investments, Gurudev. This is his favorite word, phrase. Matter investments. So the individual devoid of, unclothed, the matter investments is nothing but the absolute reality. Because of some verses that will come later on. We'll see just now. Okay, so these two words, kshetra, kshetrajna, are the two opening words. Then I told you there another pair of words and then a final pair, last pair. So the other pair now is called as jnanam, and the next word is jneyam. What is it, jnanam? Well, jnanam is the swarup of Brahma in our Upanishads. Satyam Jnanam Anantam. Brahma is called as Jnanam. the absolute reality. But here, Bhagavan makes a really wonderful, gives that word jnanam a really wonderful twist. And that is for our benefit only. He gives a list of great qualities, positive qualities, values, and all such things, which, if imbibed, if cultured and fostered in the human heart, will actually facilitate our movement towards realizing that supreme Brahma. Because these qualities, these traits, or these characteristics facilitate our movement in that direction, these qualities are called as jnanam. Amanitvam, adambhitvam, ahimsa, kshanti, arjavam, ityadi. You will see a whole section there with several verses where he gives all of these positive values, traits, qualities, characteristics, which all of us as a sadhaka should develop. Because these qualities propel the sadhaka towards that reality. In other words, if we imbibe the opposite of these qualities, we will surely be held back on that journey. We'll certainly not move forward. So, these qualities are given in a list of verses. Maybe I can tell you those number of verses also, where it starts. You will, those of you who are familiar with the amanitvam, adambhitvam, ahimsa, kshanti, arjavam, acharyopasanam, shaucham, ityadi, from number here 8, because this edition which I have here has that additional verse which is not there in Shankara Bhashya also. So number 7 in the original. So from number 7 you will see a list of verses with detachment and all such things, vairagya and all such qualities which a sadhaka has to develop, and he calls all of these qualities jnanam. Bhagavan gives this name jnanam to all of them, which traditionally is not there in the Upanishads, but it has become authoritative because Bhagavan himself has given. And so we say they lead to jnanam. They are indispensable in the acquisition of jnanam, or in self-realization. They are indispensable. So those qualities we have to go and see. Now, the next word I told you is jneyam, and this is perhaps the most important word in the chapter. Jneyam word. Jneya vastu means, we usually say jneya vastu. Jneya vastu means that which ought to be known. The thing which ought to be known. Another way of saying is the only thing which is worth knowing. This is just a stronger way of saying the same thing. The only thing which is worth knowing. Because every objectifiable piece of knowledge, or objectified piece of knowledge, every knowledge of something outside, that knowledge has relative truth only. Why? See this object. If I know it, I have knowledge of this thing, right? My knowledge will always be relative. Why? Because this thing is changing. So the moment I know it, I say, oh, I caught it. I know it. The moment I do that, this thing has changed. So now what do you know? So every piece of knowledge in the world is like that. It is subject to change because it is knowledge of an object, and objects are changing. So we say it is all relative knowledge. In the Mundaka Upanishad, Bhagavan talks about paravidya and aparavidya. The supreme knowledge and the lower knowledge. So all the knowledge which we have is called as lower knowledge, and that is subject to change. Not only that, you see, I told, if you just look at from one side, I know this, so I say, I caught it, I know it, yes, I understood it. And by the time that is over, I've understood it, this has changed. Not only that, because this upadhi is also part of the prakriti, and the upadhi is also jara vastu, the upadhi is also changing. So not only the thing has changed, but my knowledge has also changed. That's why people add many new features to their knowledge over the years. You know, if you experience something, I went to that beach and I saw a man got attacked by a shark. And after 20 years, you add many, many pieces to that story. You see, research shows this thing. People add, that shark had 25 teeth. The first time you had never had time to even count any teeth. But people's knowledge also of things, memory, everything changes. See, there's all relative knowledge. So the Jnaya Vastu is that thing which is unchanging. And in this regard, a very, very important verse in this chapter, you should remember. It says, that Vastu, that Jnaya Vastu, reality, this is in verse number 28. It says, Samam sarveshu bhuteshu tishtantam parameshwaram. This verse is important for a number of reasons. Vinashyat swavinashyantam yapashyati sapashyati. It says, that reality which is unchanging is there, existing equally in all things. It exists equally in me, exists equally in you, in a dog eater, vidya vinaya sampanne brahmane gavihastini, wherever, in an elephant, in a learned brahmana, that reality exists equally in all beings. And it is how the phrase is so wonderful. It says, vinashyatsu avinashyantam. Among all the things in the world which we see as changing. So just now I was telling you, this is changing. Then my knowledge of it is also changing. Everything is changing. So it is all called as vinashyat. Vinashyat means dying, changing, modifying all the time, dying away. It's giving way to something else. This is called change. But this reality is avinashyan. Avinashyan means this reality does not change. And this reality pervades every single thing. Samam sarveshu bhuteshu tishtantam parameshwaram. The reality pervades all things. And how? Equally. The reality is not less in you and more in me, or less in me and more in you, or less in any other thing in this universe. That is why in the 5th chapter, that very famous verse is, in a learned brahmana, in a dog eater, in an elephant, in everything, in a cow, that same reality pervades all things. The reality is not present more in the temple and less in the jail or any such thing. That reality pervades the whole universe equally, and it is unchanging. Now, if it pervades everything, the logical extension of that thing, the logical extension of that statement, samam sarveshu bhuteshu tishtantam. If it pervades all things equally, the logical extension of that statement, really, this very powerful verse of this 13th chapter, is that reality is everything. Therefore, so many verses describe that reality here as sarvatapani padam tat sarvatokshishiro mukham. It is there, having feet and eyes everywhere, like the Purusha Suktam and all describe. You see, it is all pervasive, has feet and eyes everywhere. The truth about this matter is, there is nothing in the universe besides that reality. That is, the reality alone is there, and everything else are mere names and forms. Abdo pena divat sarva nama rupa prasarana. Like in the ocean, all the waves and bubbles and all things that we see in the ocean, there is no second thing as wave or bubble or froth or nothing there. There is only H2O. Really, if you touch the ocean, do you touch wave or do you touch H2O? We touch H2O only, isn't it? We touch water. So there's only one thing in the ocean, though that one thing has an inherent power to take so many names and forms without at the same time changing its own nature. Its swarupa remains intact. That is like in childhood, in the classroom, they used to give us some play doh. we used to call plasticine in our time. Play-doh. And with that Play-Doh, let us say that Play-Doh is sweet to the taste, right? It is sweet. And so you take your Play-Doh and you make a laddu and you taste. It will be sweet. You take the same Play-Doh now and you change the form of the laddu and you make out of it a chili pepper. Make chili pepper out of Play-Doh and you taste. Will it become hot? No. It only has a nama roop of chili pepper. But its essence is the same sweet Play-Doh, like that. So the reality has taken on all of this nama rupa which we are seeing in front of us, and that reality is of the nature of Satchit Ananda. It is existence. Though in this same chapter, that reality is described as nasattannasaduchyate. It is called as not sat, no asat. It is beyond all names and forms. You see, when we say sat and asat, we are giving names again, the nama rupa. The reality is beyond all names and forms also. So that reality, which, and I'm telling you, the reality now is called as Jnayam, that which ought to be known. But here itself, in the same chapter, it says it is Sukshmatvat tadavijnayam, because it is so subtle it cannot be known. What? Just now you said it should be known, that which ought to be known, the only thing worth knowing. Then you say Sukshmatvat tadavijnayam. And Bhagavan himself tells, I'm going to tell you Jnaya Vastu, that thing which is to be known. The idea is we point our mind in that direction, and we engage in sadhana. We go slowly until the mind itself loses itself in that reality. So the mind never comes to discover anything objective, anything other than itself. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa used to give a very nice example of a salt doll trying to discover the depth of the ocean. So the doll dives in to find out the depth of the ocean, but the deeper and deeper the doll goes into the ocean, then what happens? The salt doll melts away and disappears into the ocean. You see? That is why in the same chapter it said that is Jnaya Vastu. But then in the same chapter it is saying now it is Sukshma and Avijnayam. It is unknowable, like that. So we point, when it says Jnaya, means it is worth pointing the mind in that direction, taking the mind in that direction until that mind itself dissolves away in that thing, that reality. Alright, so this is Jnaya Vastu, which is described variously in great detail. And the conclusion of that Jnaya Vastu is that Jnaya Vastu really is everything in the universe. And then what it ends up meaning then, but there is only one thing. There is only one reality in the universe. That same reality is me, you, and every other thing. There is no second thing. What an intimacy comes when we understand this thing, that I am one with everything. I am alone there in the universe, though I am manifesting as all the various names and forms which we see around. Okay, so this is really the crux of this chapter 13. That reality is avibhaktam cha bhuteshu vibhaktam iva cha sthitam. It is undivided, though appears divided, as this object, as you, as me, as they, as we, and all of that. You see, it appears divided, but it is not divided at all. The next next pair of words in the chapter is Purusha and Prakriti, which comes later on, and these are just two additional words for, or another way of looking at the universe. All the things which we see in front of us, which are changing, actually belong to Prakriti. And all the things in the universe are enlivened. Like, for example, I am enlivened by what? Purusha, that Supreme Parameshwara. So, the Jara universe becomes enlivened. All the things in the universe which we see Jara means it is inert and becomes enlivened by Purusha. So that Purusha is the same Jnaya Vastu which is being described now, or it's the same Kshetrajna which was described previously. Yeah, Kshetrajna, yeah, Jnaya Vastu, the thing to be known, and here Purusha. It is just a different pair of words to explain the same Kshetrajna or Jnaya Vastu, which this Purusha word, same thing is being described with different words. That is all. See, the reason for this is a very simple thing. In all philosophical systems which have such a wide spread, imagine our population spread from Himalayas to the Arabian Sea and all the way to Kanyakumari. And so you will have people using different words over such a long period of time, you see, using different words to refer to the same thing. So here Bhagavan is just including now all the various words which refer to the same thing. So we have here Kshetrajna, we have here Jnaya Vastu, and we have here Purusha. And Kshetrajna, what he knows the objectifiable things. Here, what is that? The Purusha knows the Prakriti and also enlivens the Prakriti. So that one idea is added there. It gives life to the Prakriti. But in the middle, what we have between these two, beginning and end, we have Jnaya Vastu. And if this Jnaya Vastu is studied, we will realize that there is only one thing. Here there is, just from a certain standpoint, you have two things, Purusha and Prakriti. Or here, Kshetra and Kshetrajna. From a certain standpoint, there are two things. Really speaking, there is only one thing, one absolute reality, appearing as all the various things, appearing as the duality. There is no real duality. It is just an appearance, an abhasa rupa, it is called in Vedanta. It is all an appearance of multiplicity and duality. That is why it says avibhaktam vibhakteshu. Vibhakteshu means it's all, it appears divided. See, vibhakta means separate things, divided things, individual things. But there is a reality running through all of them, which is avibhaktam, undivided, that one reality. This really is the crux of the 13th chapter and also the crux of the Upanishads. If this oneness of the universe is caught, that oneness which pervades me, pervades you, and pervades all things, the essence of Upanishads, essence of the 13th chapter will be caught. And see, we are using words with limitations. We are saying caught. But here in 13th chapter itself says, it is because it is subtle, sukshmatvat. Due to the fact that it is subtle, tad avijnayam. It cannot be known, therefore it cannot be caught. We are using words at a certain level. What has to happen? Make the mind quieter, quieter, quieter. Dhyanena atmani pashyanti. Means by it is seen, or they see by dhyan. I sit down and I quieten my mind. Make it quieter and quieter, more and more tranquil, and I settle down into my own true self. This is what we mean by seeing. Not that I will see with my eyes like that. I'll close my eyes and then kaboom, I'll get some kind of big nice vision, like, and people describe light and all that sort of thing. And some people describe red light and yellow light and green light like they're watching traffic light. No. Quiet mind, tranquil mind, peaceful mind, and go slip into dhyan, into meditation. This is what is being described. Okay, so this is in essence a summary of the whole 13th chapter, where it really is trying to teach a oneness, a singularity amidst an apparent plurality. Okay. Hari Om. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ओम शांति शांति शांति। हरि ओम। श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि ओम।